9 sets of military medals, polished daily with spit and torn fabric, housed in cardboard boxes arranged like a shrine in a frozen tunnel beneath Moscow's railway bridge. March 1946. The veterans' routine never changes. Wake before dawn, polish the medals, search for work, return to the tunnel at dusk. Each medal tells a story. Stalingrad, Kursk, Berlin. These men survived Hitler's armies, but couldn't survive peace. Stalin's security detail maps every meter of Moscow except the forgotten spaces. Construction forces his motorcade past this exact bridge. One veteran keeps a separate medal hidden from the others, never shows it, never speaks of it. The night before the encounter, he tells his companion, "Tomorrow changes everything." How did he know? Time 0.5s. The secret medal held an answer Stalin had been hunting for 2 years. And when the general secretary's boots stepped into that tunnel, 9 lives and 400,000 more would never be the same. Victory came at a cost no parade could measure. 27 million Soviet dead, cities reduced to rubble, families erased. The Red Army returned home to a country that barely functioned. Moscow, March 1946, was a city of contradictions. Official Soviet newspapers declared all veterans honored, all needs met, all heroes rewarded. The reality lived in tunnels and abandoned buildings. Thousands of former soldiers traded their medals for bread. Thousands more simply disappeared into the margins. The 9 men beneath the railway bridge had names, units, stories. Nikolai Volkov, 32, fought at Kursk and took 2 bullets defending a supply line. Ivan Petrov, 28, lost 3 fingers to frostbite during the siege of Leningrad. Mikhail Sokolov, 35, was at Stalingrad when the city became hell on earth. Each man had been decorated. Each had survived battles that killed millions. Now, they were invisible in the city they'd defended. But they kept their medals pristine. Every morning, the same ritual. A scrap of cloth, a bit of moisture, careful circular motions. The bronze and silver gleamed, even in the tunnel's darkness. These were the only possessions that mattered. Not because they had value. Veteran medals flooded Moscow's black markets, worth almost nothing. But because they proved something, we were there. We fought. We survived. The medals were identity when everything else had been stripped away. Soviet records from 1946 confirm what propaganda denied. An estimated 127,000 veterans lived without housing in Moscow alone. Nationwide, the number exceeded 400,000. The economic devastation was total. Factories destroyed, collective farms empty, no jobs, no food, no housing. The men who saved the Soviet Union came home to find nothing left to save them. Stalin's Moscow existed in a parallel dimension. The Kremlin, the security apparatus, the motorcade routes planned to the minute, every street mapped, every building monitored. The General Secretary's daily movements followed rigid patterns. No surprises, no deviations, no contact with unscripted reality. His world was gold fixtures and mahogany desks and officers who saluted on cue. March 1946 brought Victory Day parade preparations. The event required obsessive precision. 300,000 troops, perfect formations, choreographed to the second. Stalin personally reviewed rehearsal schedules. He watched from Lenin's mausoleum as columns marched through Red Square. The symbolism mattered. Soviet power on display. Soviet victory made visible. Time, 0.5s. Soviet strength projected to the world. But the railway district was a blind spot. Construction zones always were. Security protocols struggled with constant changes, blocked roads, detours, temporary barriers. Stalin's chief of security objected to any route alterations. The general secretary's safety requires consistency, he argued, but logistics overruled him. Roadwork on the main boulevard forced a detour through industrial streets. First time in 8 years, Stalin would pass through that specific area. The order came down. March 15, 1946, motorcade rerouted through railway district. Security advance team inspected the route, cleared buildings, posted guards at intersections. But they didn't check beneath the bridges. Time, 0.5s. Why would they? Nobody lived under bridges. Officially, two worlds, Kremlin and tunnel, existed in the same city, breathing the same air, separated by assumptions and indifference. The parade ground showed one truth. The bridge showed another. And on March 15th, those truths were about to collide. Nikolai Volkov kept the fifth medal in a separate box. Never showed the others. Never mentioned it. The medal came from December 1943, awarded personally by a frontline officer during a brief respite in the fighting. Volkov had been at a strategic meeting. Wrong place, wrong time, or maybe exactly the right place. Junior officers weren't supposed to be present when senior commanders discussed operational plans, but chaos has no protocol. The officer who gave him the medal was dying. Shrapnel wound to the abdomen, no field hospital close enough. He pressed the medal into Volkov's hand and said, "If things go wrong after the war, this medal finds Stalin." Volkov didn't understand. The officer died before explaining. The medal looked ordinary. Bronze star, red ribbon, standard combat commendation. But on the reverse side, a small marking. 3 dots arranged in a triangle. Volkov noticed it later, never found another medal with that marking. He kept it hidden through the rest of the war. Kept it hidden in the tunnel. Something about the officer's tone suggested the medal was dangerous. Then, in early March 1946, Volkov started noticing patterns. Certain decorated veterans were disappearing. Not arrested, just gone. Relocated, maybe. Recruited, possibly. He couldn't prove anything, but instinct said the medal mattered. The night before Stalin's motorcade came through, Volkov told Ivan, "Tomorrow, we'll know." Ivan asked what he meant. Volkov just touched the hidden box and said nothing more. The medal felt heavier each day, like it was pulling destiny closer, like it had been waiting for exactly this moment. March 15th, 1946, 6:47 a.m. NKVD officers descended on the railway bridge with orders to clear out unauthorized residents before the motorcade passed through. Standard procedure. Move them along. Clean up the view. The searchlights swept into the tunnel and found 9 men surrounded by cardboard and carefully arranged medals. The veterans attempted to stand. 3 collapsed immediately. Malnutrition, exhaustion, cold. The officers began the removal process without emotion. Then they heard the motorcade engines. Stalin's ZUIS 110 limousine approached the bridge. The driver saw the searchlights, saw the medals catching the light, glinting in the pre-dawn darkness like signals. He slowed. Stalin noticed. "What's happening?" The driver explained. Stalin said 2 words. "Stop here." 11 minutes of security chaos. The protocol for the general, secretary exiting his vehicle in an unsecured location, didn't exist because it never happened. Guards scrambled. Security chief radioed for backup. Stalin opened the door himself and walked toward the tunnel. The 9 veterans recognized him instantly, tried to stand at attention, failed. Volkov made his decision in that split second, pulled out the hidden medal. Stalin examined each man's medals, asked their units, asked their battles, asked their current situation. The answers were humiliating. No work, Comrade Stalin. No home, Comrade Stalin. We survive, Comrade Stalin. Then Stalin reached Volkov, saw the 5th medal in his trembling hand, saw the 3 dots. His expression changed. Where did you get this? Volkov explained. The dying officer. The cryptic instruction. Stalin's eyes narrowed. He turned to his security chief. All 9 men. Vehicles. Now. Not arrests? Not quite. But not optional. The veterans were loaded into black cars. Destination unknown. The vehicles didn't go to Lubyanka. That surprised everyone. Instead, a medical facility on the outskirts of Moscow. Classified location. The 9 veterans were separated, given food, examined by doctors. Not prisoners. Time 0.5s, not guests. Something in between. Stalin disappeared into a secure office and summoned 3 advisors within the hour. The context existed in classified files. In 1943, as the tide of war shifted, a parallel commendation system had been established. Frontline officers could award special recognition to soldiers who witnessed specific strategic decisions. The medals looked ordinary, but carried hidden markings. The purpose, creating a network of witnesses. Soldiers who could corroborate decisions, verify orders, confirm who said what when. Insurance against future political disputes. Post-war, these witnesses scattered. The chaos of demobilization, the collapse of record-keeping, the Soviet bureaucracy lost track of thousands of veterans who carried these special commendations. By 1946, Stalin faced internal political battles. Rivals claimed credit for victories, disputed his strategic decisions, rewrote history in real time. Stalin needed evidence. He needed witnesses. The search had been ongoing for months with limited success. 9 starving veterans with special commendations represented intelligence failure. They should have been located, protected, maintained. Instead, the system that created them abandoned them. Stalin's fury wasn't directed at the veterans. It was aimed at the officials who let critical witnesses nearly die beneath a bridge. The order went out immediately. Locate every veteran carrying a classified commendation. Cross-reference combat records. Check unit assignments. Find them. 3,000 to 5,000 men estimated. Timeline, 30 days. The search wasn't about charity. It was about control, about power, about having the evidence to win battles that weren't fought with guns. The Kremlin offices descended into controlled chaos. The order to find every special commendation recipient collided with reality. NKVD records were incomplete. Demobilization paperwork was chaotic. Many veterans weren't registered anywhere. They lived rough, avoided official channels, survived off the grid. Tracking them seemed impossible. Stalin's deadline stood firm: 30 days. Across Moscow, across the Soviet Union, officials mobilized. But a parallel bureaucratic war erupted beneath the surface. Some advisors quietly argued that letting veterans starve had been intentional policy. The logic was cold. Hungry veterans don't organize, don't question, don't threaten stability. Keep them desperate, keep them scattered, keep them powerless. Stalin's counter-argument was equally cold but opposite. They defeated Hitler. They'll defeat anyone. Veterans who survived Stalingrad couldn't be controlled through starvation. They could only be controlled through structure, through purpose, through being brought inside the system rather than left outside it. The internal debate raged across memoranda and closed meetings. Two searches now ran simultaneously, one for the veterans, one for the internal officials who'd implemented the abandonment policy. Stalin wanted names, wanted accountability. The special commendation veterans were simultaneously evidence and leverage. Their testimony could corroborate Stalin's wartime decisions. Their suffering could indict officials who'd failed to protect them. By the end of the first week, Stalin's team reported success. 400 medal holders located. But then, the verification began. The medals were wrong, traded, sold, stolen. The veteran black market had scattered commendations across Moscow. Officials had found men holding the medals, but not the men who'd been awarded them. The search wasn't over. It was starting from scratch. 30 days suddenly seemed impossible. The 9 original veterans remained in the medical facility, fed, rested, interviewed separately. The questions weren't about their health. They were about memory. December 1943, the meeting at the command post. Who was present? February 1944, the order to advance. Who gave it? June 1944, the strategic decision at the river crossing. What did the senior officer say? Stalin's actual goal became clear. Corroborating specific wartime decisions. Time 0.5s. The internal Soviet power struggle in 1946 involved competing narratives about victory. Certain officials claimed credit for strategies Stalin believed he'd directed. Certain generals disputed command decisions. Certain political figures rewrote timelines to inflate their roles. History was being contested in real time. The veterans were evidence, living witnesses to moments that shaped the war. Volkov's medal specifically indicated he'd witnessed a high-level strategic meeting. The other 8 men held similar markers, different battles, different decisions, but all carrying testimony about who ordered what and when. Stalin was building a case using veteran memories as ammunition. Not criminal charges, that was too crude. Political leverage. Time, new point it wives, the ability to expose false claims, to prove rivals were lying about their wartime contributions. The veterans' value wasn't as heroes. It was as evidence in a power struggle most Soviet citizens didn't know existed. Volkov realized this during his 3rd interview. The questions were too specific, too focused on details that mattered politically rather than militarily. They survived German bullets, he told Ivan later when they briefly crossed paths in a hallway. Now we're ammunition in a different war. But Volkov also understood leverage works both ways. Stalin needed their testimony, which meant Stalin needed them alive, healthy, credible. The starving veterans beneath the bridge had no power. The witnesses in the Kremlin facility suddenly had value. The question became, what could they extract in exchange for their memories? The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A junior clerk in the Moscow ration distribution office noticed something curious. Every Soviet citizen registered for food rations. The cards carried identification numbers. Certain numbers had been flagged years earlier. notations in the system indicating special commendation holders. The information had always been there, filed, categorized, maintained, just never cross-referenced with the search. The clerk brought the discovery to his supervisor. The supervisor brought it to district officials. Within 24 hours, it reached Stalin's office. The fury was immediate. The search had consumed a week of resources, hundreds of personnel, nationwide coordination. The answer existed in the ration card system the entire time. The bureaucracy had simply never bothered to look. Stalin demanded immediate cross-referencing, ration card numbers against commendation records. The process took 48 hours. The results were staggering. 2,847 veterans identified, locations known, some employed, some homeless, some dead. The system had tracked them all along, just filed the information under unimportant. The discovery was both triumph and indictment. Stalin could locate his witnesses, but the fact they'd been ignored, allowed to starve, left to die, that revealed the depth of bureaucratic indifference. The officials who deprioritized veteran welfare now faced consequences. The information existed. They'd simply chosen not to use it. That choice was about to become very expensive. Stalin ordered personal briefings on each located veteran, status reports, health assessments, employment verification. He wanted comprehensive data within a week. The search transformed from investigation into accounting. But a new problem emerged. Veteran families began appearing at Kremlin gates, demanding answers about disappeared relatives. The operation had leaked. Public interpretation was forming. Stalin was arresting war heroes. The narrative was spinning beyond control. 12 days into custody, the 9 original veterans remained in the medical facility while Moscow exploded with rumors. An internal memo leaked. Stalin personally ordered veteran roundups. The public heard ordered and veterans and imagined purges. Foreign press picked up the story. Stalin arrests war heroes, screamed headlines from London to New York. The propaganda damage was immediate. Inside the Soviet Union, panic rippled through veteran communities. Men who'd been slowly surfacing, using ration cards, accessing limited support. They vanished underground again. The ration card tracking suddenly became useless. Thousands of veterans stopped accessing the system entirely. They'd survived war by being invisible. Peace taught them the same lesson. The search stalled completely. Stalin faced a calculation, reveal the political motivation behind the search that would expose internal power struggles to public scrutiny. Dangerous. Or continue silence and appear to be purging heroes. Equally dangerous. The foreign press was weaponizing the story. Veteran families were mobilizing, and the testimony he needed was becoming politically toxic to obtain. The 9 men became leverage in reverse. How Stalin treated them would signal his intent. Release them, and the search collapses. Keep them, and confirm the purge narrative. Use them publicly, and risk exposing the political investigation. Stalin had hunted witnesses to strengthen his position. The hunt was now weakening it. On March 25th, Stalin made a decision. Public announcement required. Radio address scheduled. The 9 veterans would appear with him. The plan: announce a new veteran support system. Provide political cover. Let the internal investigation continue quietly while the public saw compassion rather than conspiracy. The strategy was vintage Stalin. used truth as camouflage for deeper truth. But first, a private conversation. Stalin met with Volkov alone. No guards, no recording, just two men and a medal with three dots. Tell me what you saw, Stalin said, and I'll tell you what happens next. Volkov told the truth. December 1943. The command post meeting. Senior officers debating whether to advance or consolidate. Volkov had been delivering dispatches. Wrong place, wrong time. He witnessed the strategic argument, heard specific officers advocate specific positions, remembered who said what. His testimony confirmed Stalin's version of events, contradicted the revisionist narrative certain officials now promoted. Stalin listened without interrupting. When Volkov finished, there was silence. Then Stalin spoke. Your testimony helps me. What do you want in return? Volkov's answer was immediate. Help all the veterans, not just witnesses, all of them. Stalin considered this. I was planning veteran support regardless. Makes good politics. Then make it more than politics, Volkov said. The boldness was dangerous, but he'd survived Kursk. Fear had different meaning after that. Make it systemic, housing, jobs, pensions, real support, not just for 3,000 witnesses, for 400,000 veterans. The negotiation was brief. Stalin needed credible testimony. Volkov needed assurance the help was genuine. The trade, Volkov becomes the public face of a new veteran initiative. He testifies in closed hearings about the 1943 meeting. Stalin issues a comprehensive support order affecting all veterans, not just commendation holders. Both men get what they need. Justice for truth. Truth for power. Order 428 was drafted that night, March 25th to 26, 1946. The document ran 23 pages. Priority housing allocation, job placement programs, pension restoration, medical care. The scope was unprecedented. Funding came from canceled infrastructure projects, roads and buildings delayed to feed money into veteran support. The timeline, immediate implementation, 90-day rollout. Estimated impact, 400,000 veterans. The radio broadcast was scheduled for March 26th evening. Stalin would appear with all 9 veterans, each man introduced by name, unit, battles, medals displayed prominently, including Volkov's special commendation, the secret now public, weaponized for propaganda rather than hidden as leverage. March 26, 1946. The broadcast studio was small, uncomfortable, hot under the lights. The 9 veterans wore new clothes, still simple, but clean and intact. Their medals pinned precisely. Stalin arrived exactly on time. No small talk, no rehearsal. The technician counted down. Red light. Live. Stalin's voice carried across the Soviet Union. Those who saved the motherland will never be forgotten. He introduced each veteran, their names, their units, their battles. Stalingrad, Kursk, Berlin. The medals glinted under studio lights. The narrative was clear. Heroes honored, promises kept, system working. What the broadcast omitted was everything beneath the surface. The political investigation continued. The testimony gathered. The closed hearings where Volkov and others corroborated Stalin's version of wartime decisions. The internal battles fought with memories as weapons. The real audience wasn't the public. It was the officials who'd let veterans starve, who'd rewritten history, who'd challenged Stalin's authority. Within a week, 3 senior officials quietly disappeared from their posts. No arrests, no trials, just removals. reassignments to distant posts. The message was clear. Stalin had evidence, Stalin had witnesses, Stalin was watching. Order 428 was simultaneously compassion and threat, help for veterans, warning for officials. The veterans got housing, Stalin got leverage, and Moscow got its reckoning. The broadcast ended with Stalin shaking hands with each man. The cameras captured Volkov's face, hollow-cheeked but clear-eyed, a man who'd survived war and peace and one final negotiation. The image was published in Pravda the next day. "Heroes honored," read the headline. True enough, just not the whole truth. But the whole truth rarely fits in headlines. The broadcast succeeded. Public panic subsided. Foreign press moved to other stories. Veteran families stopped gathering at gates. The internal investigation concluded quietly over the following months. And Order 428 began the slow, imperfect work of implementation. April 1946. Order 428 rolled out across the Soviet Union. The 9 original veterans were assigned apartments in central Moscow. 2-room flats, modest but functional. Employment offers came immediately. Volkov accepted a position in the Veterans Affairs Office. Bureaucratic work, coordinating the exact kind of support that should have existed years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on him. The other 8 men declined government work, factory jobs instead. They'd had enough of offices and officials. They wanted ordinary work, ordinary lives, distance from politics. Stalin didn't object. The propaganda value had been extracted. Their continued visibility mattered less than their earlier testimony. Public reaction to Order 428 was overwhelmingly positive. Stalin's approval ratings spiked. Pravda ran features on rehabilitated veterans. But the hidden reality was less triumphant. Veteran support was funded by gutting other social programs. Housing reallocation created new homelessness, non-veteran families displaced to make room for soldiers. Regional officials resisted. They had local priorities, local power structures. Central Moscow could issue orders, but implementation required cooperation. Stalin's response was characteristically direct. Resistors were replaced. Examples were made. The order would be implemented regardless of local objections. By June 1946, approximately 60% of eligible veterans had been housed or employed. Success by Soviet standards. Failure by any absolute measure. 40% remained in the cold. The system couldn't absorb everyone immediately. Rural veterans were missed entirely. The ration card system worked in cities, failed in villages. Corruption infiltrated the program. Officials took bribes to bump certain veterans up the queue. Black market housing certificates appeared. The imperfection was inevitable. Large-scale Soviet programs always leaked reality around the edges. In May, one of the original 9 veterans died. Pneumonia. His lungs had been damaged by years of exposure. The medical care came too late. Stalin attended the funeral, a rare public appearance. No speech, just presence, acknowledgement. The cost of victory, the cost of survival. The medals told the whole story. The 9 men's commendations were eventually displayed in the Veterans Affairs Office, framed, preserved behind glass, a shrine to the men who'd been forgotten and then remembered. But Volkov's secret medal remained separate. Stalin kept it in his personal safe, a reminder of how close the system had come to losing critical evidence. of how bureaucracy could bury truth as efficiently as any conspiracy. Volkov worked in the Veterans Affairs Office through 1946 and into 1947. He helped process applications, navigated the bureaucracy for men who'd navigated much worse. The work was frustrating. Constant obstacles, insufficient resources, officials who resisted change. But it was work with purpose. Every veteran housed was a small victory. Every pension restored was justice delayed, but delivered. Time 0.5s. June 1946 brought Victory Day. The parade proceeded as planned. 300,000 troops marching through Red Square in perfect formation. But this year included a veteran contingent, men who'd actually fought the war, not just the current military. The symbolism was deliberate. Heroes visible. Promises kept. System working. Stalin watched from Lenin's mausoleum. The numbers told a different story. March 1946. 127,000 homeless veterans in Moscow. June 1946. 30,000. Improvement, certainly, but 70,000 still outside the system, still surviving in margins and shadows, still invisible despite Order 428. The progress was real but incomplete, like everything Stalin touched, effective and brutal, successful and insufficient. One afternoon in June, Stalin ordered his motorcade to detour past the old railway bridge. No announcement, no explanation. The drivers simply took a different route home from the Kremlin. They passed the tunnel. It was empty now, sealed, scheduled for demolition as part of city modernization. But someone had left a medal behind, pinned to a wooden beam, catching the afternoon light. Stalin saw it, didn't order its removal, just noted it and moved on.